Sabah everybody and welcome back to the channel. When we talk about budget smartphones, some brands may come up to your mind. OnePlus with the Nord line, Xiaomi with their Redmi line, and of course some other devices that are considered to be entry level. So I'm talking actually sub $200 price point, and specifically the Redmi Note 11. This is the entry level of all of the Note 11s that were announced earlier this week. We have the 11, the 11S, the 11 Pro, and the 11 Pro 5G. This is literally the best bang for the buck experience that you get out of all four of them, because this one starts at $179. This is TK. Let's go ahead and talk about all of the features and what you get for $179 from Redmi. This is the Redmi Note 11. Like and subscribe, and make sure you hit that bell icon so that you're always notified to whenever we have new videos on the channel. So this is the package, and the Redmi Note 11, again, the entry level of all the Note 11s that were announced. We have a USB Type-A to USB Type-C cable here, powered with this 33-watt charger that's included in the box. Now, this one is a European style, so if you are going to import it to the US, make sure you buy the correct adapter, and it should work fine. Again, USB Type-A connector to be able to charge the 5,000 milliampere battery that we have in here. And that's actually one of the main benefits. At $179, we're still getting a charger in the box and a fast charger at that, even faster than some of the major S21 series of 2021, because the fastest they could charge was 25 watt. They do include a case in the package, as well as the fact that this configuration is the base model. So there's three different models of the 11. There's a 464, a 4128, and a 6128. This one is actually the 4 gigabytes of RAM with 64 gigs of internal storage. So this is literally the entry level of the system. One of the main benefits here is that not only do we support dual SIM here with LTE on both SIM cards, we also support an SD card. So even though we have 64 gigabytes internal, we can still expand it by adding an additional SD card in here for up to 256 or even 512 gigabytes. On the back, we have a triple camera stack. The primary shooter is the 50 megapixel sensor. We have an 8 ultra wide, a 2 macro, and a 2 depth sensor. And those are going to be the camera stack that's available in the back. So essentially the ultra wide and the main sensor are going to be your primary shooters. The depth and the macro are going to be available there for better bokeh, for obviously, and better images like that. Also, we are able to take images of the full sensor of the 15 megapixel, and I'll share that with you guys directly in the app. And of course, we have a dual tone LED flash. On the side, a dual SIM card with an SD card support here on the left side. On the top, we have a headphone jack, a secondary speaker married to the bottom speaker to give us stereo speakers, an IR blaster, and one of the microphones for the camera. There's the earpiece that's present right next to it, although the speaker on the top will be providing us the stereo experience. A volume rocker and a power button / fingerprint sensor present here on the right. And one of the reasons I love this is it's really one of the fastest solutions you can get on the market. So no in-display, but definitely one of the better solutions that we can find here. On the bottom, secondary speaker, USB-C connectivity for data transfer, and of course charging, and of course the additional microphone for the cameras. Now looking at it at the front, we have a 6.43 1080p or Full HD Plus resolution display running at 90 Hz. It is an AMOLED display, which is very nice. The system is entirely powered by the Snapdragon 680, and of course, again, as I mentioned, 5,000 milliampere battery. The 464 is the configuration that I have in here. IR blaster, headphone jack, stereo speakers, and of course all of the main benefit, and all starting at $179. So when it comes down to the price, this is a very budget-friendly phone. Again, LTE in the US, I have it, we're connected right now on T-Mobile here in the US. I did a couple of speed tests for you guys just to kind of give you guys how or what should you expect at this speed. 20 megabits down, 5.5 up, and about 1920. So roughly about 20 down and about 6 up. And that's average of what I'm able to expect. And again, keep in mind that this one is running only on LTE. You are going to be able to get 5G, and that's going to be on the 11 Pro 5G, which is the highest of all four that they mentioned. All four of them are considered to be budget-friendly devices because even at their best, they're still sub $300. Now, as far as the usability and what you're getting here, this is great for content consumption. Again, 6.43-inch display, able to play Netflix, play Pubg Mobile, and we'll get a chance to jump into Pubg, and I'll share with you guys my experience there. There's a few applications preloaded out of the box. Of course, we have a clock, the IR blaster, and that's what's going to be working with that Mi remote, and of course, a voice recorder. You can turn on with or without the app drawer, and for me, I did turn that on, and it has a nice little categorization option that you get there. One of the things to keep in mind is that this is running MIUI. Now, this is MIUI 13 running on Android 11. So this is not Android 12 yet. So one thing to keep in mind is this is why if I swipe from the right down, I get access to this type of an experience. If I swipe down from the left side, that gives us down to the notification. So that's something to keep in mind, and you're able to change that on some devices. Now, if I swipe down real quick, I can open up all of the different toggles. We have dark mode, do not disturb, battery saver, vibrate, all the different options, nearby share, of course, NFC support, Wi-Fi configuration, Bluetooth, and of course flashlight if you want to do that. Jumping into the settings and into the About, MIUI 13, it's a global edition, so this is the international model. This is the Redmi Note 11. It is running on Android 11, of course, with January 1st, 2021 for the security patch update. And of course, everything else pretty much just the standard what we expect. My model has 64 gigs. After installing a few games, I've used about 32 gigabytes of it. And of course, you're able to click that here and see the different configuration and the stack of data on how it's being used. Last but not least, again, if you have any updates, you can click there. And there was no additional updates. 13.0.1 is the latest version of the MIUI 13 that's running here. Other than that, standard configuration customization, always on display. We have that since we have an AMOLED display as well. I did customize my lock screen, of course, and I'm able to unlock the phone, and you can customize it to your liking. MIUI is very customizable, and it seems to be running pretty decently on here. I will say that I feel like 6 gigabytes of RAM would probably be the better solution to go with this if you want to go with, let's say, the Note 11, just for more of a longevity type of an experience. 4 gigabytes is okay, but will have certain limitation as time goes on. But we have to keep in mind, this is a $179 phone. It's not really intended to be competing with mid-rangers or even flagships. It's really about the bang for the buck and the best savings experience that you can get out of it. The 11S is a little bit more, and that's available with slightly different configuration, better camera optics. On this, as I mentioned, 50 megapixel is the main sensor on the back, and that's going to be your best camera anyways. So for the most part, for photography, always make sure to use that one, and you're going to be very happy. If you jump into more, you're able to use the 50 megapixel mode, which enables you to take a full 50 megapixel image readout directly from the sensor. And we'll definitely get a chance to look at that, but you can definitely appreciate the colors, the details, and everything updating there. Now, the reason why the image was doing that little bit of a refresh when we were going in here, and this is basically due to the 680. The 680 is a good mid-range processor, but it's more on the lower end, and the GPU performance is not as high. As far as everything else, Google Assistant, you have access to launching the Assistant, everything. Google Play Store is preloaded. And of course, when it comes down to the cameras, we have video mode that enables us to give us 1080p 30 on the front-facing camera and 1080p 60 on the back-facing sensor, and that's going to be the best experience that we get in there. I already have it turned on there. We have Pro mode, Photo mode, Portrait mode, and under more, we have basically night mode, 50 megapixel, short video, panorama, document, slow motion, time-lapse, and of course, editing the order or how they are. Let's jump in a quick sample of the front-facing and the back-facing sensors on the Redmi Note 11. We're going to start off with a front-facing video on the brand new Redmi Note 11. Now, this one's capable of shooting 1080p 30 frames per second, and it's going to be the maximum, and it's complemented by 1080p 60 frames per second on the main sensor on the back. Let's go ahead and switch over there and give you an example of how the video looks like there. Now we're using the primary 50 megapixel sensor here on the back, and again, 1080p 60 frames per second is going to be the best. If we switch over to the ultra-wide, we do drop down to 1080p 30. So overall, a 1080p experience on both the front-facing cameras and the back-facing cameras on here on the brand new Redmi Note 11. As you saw there, the experience is pretty much uniform across the board from front-facing to back-facing experience, and it's going to be basically a 1080p resolution experience. Now, it works great with this display since this is a 1080p resolution display that again will give you the ability of enjoying the battery life of that 5000 milliampere here for much longer, and you're able to charge it up much faster. Now, stereo speakers, as I mentioned, top speaker and bottom speaker. I'm going to go 100% on the top speaker, so there's one, and of course there's the other one. You're able to use for zero lag or any no latency, of course, the headphone jack that's present in there. Although I don't expect necessarily having something very performance here, like a supported DAC, but it definitely should be a good option for whenever you just don't want to be able to, well. As you saw there, the audio sounds pretty good, and again, 1080p resolution and kind of all across both the front and the back sensors. We're going to jump into Alex Crindo Jumbo by NCS release, 100% volume here. Again, top speaker, bottom speaker powering this entire experience. And we're going to go ahead and jump into that now.
Jack it up.
You know what? For the price that this is coming from, it's actually louder than most other devices I've heard. One thing I will say though, the sound doesn't sound very clear. It does sound a little bit overpowered, and I definitely would say it's not very bassy. Although, again, for movies and content that you're playing with, I think this should be perfectly fine. The speakers that we have in here are both facing outwards, so they're not facing us directly. So this is going to rely heavily on us holding the phone in this format and allowing the volume or the sound to basically bounce back off of our arms straight into our ears. And this one's going to make it sound even louder when you're listening to content on it. So this is the Geekbench Score, 347 single core, 1464. Again, it's pretty comparable to some of the other 600 series processors that we have in here. But overall, again, again, runs pretty good. Xiaomi did a really good job of performance optimizations for the 4 gigabytes of RAM and the 64 gigs of internal storage. Now, when it comes down to gaming, we do have the ability of running Game Turbo. Now, this one is actually an app that's already pre-installed. You just have to activate it within the settings. From there, you can actually add different applications that are games, or automatically you should be able to add them. You can turn it on in-game shortcuts, of course, and content recommendations. Remove added games from home screen if you want to be able to do that. It'll save you some space. Uninstalled games, homepage orientation, home screen shortcut. If you want to add that, this will actually enable you to have it there. Under performance mode, you're able to turn on Wi-Fi optimizations and, of course, the ability of turning on optimized touch control to get that best performance, about 180 hertz touch sampling here. As far as the performance optimization, memory exceptions, MIUI speed boost if you're running it in there, enhanced experience, you can go in and turn off brightness, reading mode, anything that could potentially cause any issues for you there. And then from there, you'll be able to just turn on the game and then launch it. In this situation, I installed Pubg since it's one of my favorite games and we're going to check it out. From there, you can also swipe up and bring up the new Game Turbo section. We have screen recording, screenshots, do not disturb, clear memory, and that'll help us get the best experience on here. Brightness control settings, and of course turn off screen or casting. Now, one thing I did find that was very nice, the ability of actually running a second app in case, let's say you're in the middle of a game, but you want to be able to interact with a second app. So an example would be here. We're going to jump over into the Google Play Store. It launches it into a little bit of a pop-up window. So this gives me the ability of actually bringing it up, and I can actually present that, put that at the top left. And of course, I can interact with it. I can do things, whatever I want to be able to do with it. And one of the main benefits that we have in here is the ability of moving it in case you want to be able to interact and not necessarily get out of the game. And then when you're done, you can just swipe it up to the top left. But let's go ahead and jump in real quick into a quick demo of Pubg Mobile. One thing to keep in mind when it comes down to the settings here is going to support the best resolution. And actually, let's jump in real quick into graphics. The best resolution is going to be under smooth and high, and of course balance is going to be the best graphic resolution here. But for the best frame rate, you're able to jump into high under there, and that would be the best. So we don't have HD or HDR, but I'm hoping that will come in the near future. Let me show you guys real quick how this game runs on the brand new Redmi Note 11. So at the end of the day, when we start summarizing some of the experiences running here on the Note 11, we're getting an entry level, a budget smartphone that gives us the ability of having great content consumption and great content creation at the price point that we're in. The 50 megapixel sensor, although not necessarily the most powerful sensor, is limited by the Snapdragon 680's performance. So something to keep in mind. It's a great camera performer, but one thing to keep in mind is that we're not going to get 4K. We're not going to get anything higher than 1080p 60 frames per second on that 50 megapixel sensor on the main when you're recording video. Front-facing camera gives us 13 megapixels, but again, 1080p 30 frames per second, and that's going to be the best what we get there. Overall, images in good lighting are going to look really good. Low light was not exactly the best, but again, keep in mind the price point that you're looking into. Speakers are very loud, headphone jack, IR blaster, and of course, the fact that we have a large 6.43-inch display means we can watch movies for a very long time. With the headphone jack, if we want to, or even with the stereo speakers, as they get pretty loud, although not very bassy or very, I would say, very pronounced audio, but I would say at the end of the day, for what you're paying for, I think this is a great entry point. There are other options, the 11S, the 11 Pro, and the 11 Pro of 5G. If I do get my hands on one of those, I'll definitely be able to do a separate video for you guys. But for $179, there's really very few devices on the market that can beat what this is offering. The Redmi Note 11 is definitely a bang for the buck. And if you're able to get it in the US, as I said, it provides you the LTE connectivity on 2 SIM cards with an SD card to expand the storage. There are going to be 3 different configurations. I recommend you getting the 128, not because of the storage, but more so for the RAM. But again, 4 gigs is actually able to perform quite well. At some point, I hope we'll be able to get Android 12 with MIUI 13, so we can start seeing some of the benefits of Android 12. But where we are right now is actually pretty good experience, actually. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you very much to Xiaomi, of course, for allowing me to check out the Redmi Note 11. I'll see you in the next video, and of course, on the socials.